It's heartening to see so many corpus-based studies being presented here. And thank you, Dr. Langote, for having given this presentation right before mine. It sort of acts as a prelude to what I'm going to say, and my presentation is organically flowing into this. My name is Prachi Khandekar. I am a PhD research scholar at the Linguistics Department, University of Delhi. I created a historical corpus in Middle Marathi for my doctoral project and worked on the analysis of that data, of that corpus. For today's presentation, I'm going to talk about creating a historical corpus. Because that is one part that has been missing, that is missing from all the corpora based studies. I'm going to run through these slides because I need to incorporate a demonstration also as a step-by-step process of how did I prepare this corpus. I really hope that this presentation gives ideas to young scholars who want to move into the historical linguistics area, but they don't really know how to begin working on historical corpora. So everything in this process has been self-explanatory for me. Each step was devised. I have no background and no training in computational linguistics as such. So this is all this has all been compiled by me. So this is, needless to say, it's a work in progress, and it's open to feedback, suggestions from all you experts in corpus linguistics. So let's jump right in. So first of all, why is it important to have historical corpora for Indian languages? If you look at the work going on, the research going on in historical linguistics in the Western countries, especially for English, they are using a lot of visual analytics tools, such as motion charts, bean plots, n-grams, to visualize the actual process of language change. What visualizing does is that you can identify patterns using these visualizations without actually having to deal with a lot of data tables, which is what we do when we are dealing with Indian languages and historical in their historical form. So Martin Hilpert actually calls motion charts as these sort of linguistic flip books, where you flip them and you see the language change actually happening. So the only problem is that the tools of visual analytics entail a prerequisite of having a sizable corpus of annotated historical corpora. So if we don't have that for Indian languages, we are missing out on these technical advances that are happening for the Western languages. Second is to make the study of language change more attractive for young scholars. Obviously, if there are such technical advances happening, data processing is getting so much easier and much more lucrative. Student researchers are being attracted towards the other fields of linguistics and corpus linguistics. So in order to bring more crowd to the area of historical linguistics, we need to build more and more historical corpora to stay relevant in today's technologically advanced world. To find new directions into diachronic research, here's a quote that I have from Maria Kaito's 2011 paper, which says, where she's quoting Reasonen, saying that without the support and new impetus provided by corpora, evidence-based historical linguistics would have been close to the end of its lifespan. In these days of rapid changing life and research, increasing competition on the academic track, career track, and the methodological attractions offered to young scholars. So what is really happening in terms of diachronic corpora around the world in English versus Indian languages? So as we know, since yesterday we've had so many presentations, and also the current trends in corpus linguistics and digital humanities in modern Indian languages. We are using NLP, data mining, tagging with synchronic data, speech and text corpora, but this is all happening with modern Indian languages. There are only a handful of projects going on in Indian languages as far as diachronic corpora is concerned. This is Gretel, Ipsas from Germany, DCOMA is happening in USA, AMU Poznan in Poland, and these are probably there are other diachronic corpora projects going on for non-Indo-Aryan languages as well, but these are the ones that focus on Western Indo-Aryan languages that I'm aware of, and they have a focus on Marathi. So I have mentioned these. Now, if we take a comparison, if we look at what diachronic corpora in English holds for us, we can see that there is a steady tradition and a continuous tradition of corpus building since 1964. Starting from the Brown corpus going on till 2005, and I'm sure there are more being added every day. This is why the corpora, the historical corpora in English is in billions of words, and you see the steep difference between Indian languages and English. So we need to fill this gap. That is why building historical corpora in Indian languages is extremely essential and an urgent priority. However, it's not easy to find data in historical research. There are a lot of issues when it comes to data in historical research. So we're going to look at these. It's an agreed fact that historical data will always be limited in scope and size, because it's not like new data is being found every day. There is what is available is what is available. Also, the data is not easily accessible. It's not like you go into libraries and you find historical data, because they are dug beneath layers and layers of history, politics, religious studies, and you have to do a lot of background reading to reach at researchable data. Surviving records are the ones that were permitted. So it's not like there's a variety of data available from all genre. You have to make do with whatever is available, which is why you see that there's a stark difference between the size of historical corpora versus the modern day corpora. And also, there's no negative evidence. Negative evidence is very important in linguistic research, because you have to pass grammaticality judgments. Here's to say that just because a construction does not exist in your historical corpus does not mean that it was ungrammatical in those times. Usually negative evidence is collected from speakers, which is not possible because there are no historical speakers alive of that stage. 1350 or 1375. There are no precise dates available for your data, because as we know, language change usually enters a language through spoken language, and then it is gradually reflected in the written records. Now, this time lapse between the spoken language change and the written records can be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and there is no definite way to ascertain how much time lapse exists between the spoken language and the written record. So you usually have to work with a, say, sort of chronological blob at that linguistic stage. So there are no precise dates. Then, of course, there's standardization, which keeps on wiping clues to language change. Once a language has been standardized, there's no way to go back and jump over that stage to find out how did the language exist before that. And then there are scribal matters and issues of transcription. As we know that printing press was invented only in the 15th century, and then it took some more time to come to India. Before that, all the data that we have was handwritten, written by scribes. Now the scribes had their own affinities, their own spelling conventions, and so there's a lot of different inputs. There's no uniformity in the kind of data that you get. That said, how did I reach the Mahanubhav data, which is what I worked with? So I tried everything that was possible. I visited libraries and archives, and I did a lot of interdisciplinary reading across genres of literature. So I read poetry, I read bhajans, kirtans, I read prose, and that was when I realized that because I was going to study word orders and sentence structures, I could not use poetic text, poetry, which is what medieval Indian languages are full of. So I needed prose. And then once I had that realization, I met with a lot of experts across various fields, not just linguistics, but I spoke with experts from religion studies, from literature, from history, and linguistics, of course, to understand that I would find prose data in the Mahanubhav community. Now, Mahanubhav is a very closed community of religious philosophers. They started collecting the memoirs of their mystic leader who was alive in the 12th century, and that's where they started record keeping, starting the 13th century in Marathi. So this is the script that they use, the Sakara script, and this is not what I worked with. Thankfully, there were a lot of scholars in the last century who worked towards transcribing this to Devanagari, and there are edited versions available today. So I worked with those. Meeting with the Mahanubha community experts was also a very lengthy process, because these scholars they travel a lot, and they are not accessible through emails or phones. Nothing. They don't entertain everybody into their close group, because they guard their data with their lives. As you see, these are texts handed down from generations to generations, and they keep it very safely. They don't let everybody see it. So in order to convince them that I was a genuine researcher interested in their data, I was not going to misuse their data, I had to do a lot of background reading in their literature, in their history, and only after I had satisfied them with my answers were they convinced that, okay, I was genuinely there for doing research on their data. After that, they told me about their literature, and that was when I started reading the texts in Old Marathi. And then there was a long process of gaining competence in reading Old Marathi, because it is very different from the modern Marathi. But the problems don't end here, and collecting the appropriate data is not all that is there, because there are problems involved also with developing the historical corpora in Indian languages, as also mentioned by the previous presenter, that there is a wide variety of scripts already. So most of the technology is designed for Roman script and not for Indian languages. Thankfully, it is changing now. However, the changing systems are also meant for live language feeding. So you can't really take sources from historical texts and which are in different scripts. So that is a problem there. Inadequate tagging systems is a big problem, because the modern tagging systems that are designed are for the standard varieties of modern languages. As I discussed that with the scribal issues, there were multiple spellings for same words, and when that happens, the modern tagging systems fail to process the historical data. Also, the data that you have is not your own. It's not like you have collected that data on your own. It's definitely secondary data which was meant for some other purpose, and you are using it for linguistic analysis. So there are a lot of copyright issues, which means that even if you can collate a historical corpora, you cannot freely make it public. There are a lot of permissions that are needed in order to overcome the copyright issues. That is usually a very lengthy process. And the contextual information is essential. When you release your when you eventually release your historical corpora to an academic audience, they need some context to it. They need to understand the background, the social background, the political background of where that data is coming from. So just publishing a historical corpora is not enough. You need a lot of work, first of all, to acquire the data, and secondly, to make it viable for the users. So these are the problems, and probably the reason why there's not a lot of work happening in historical corpora. However, I get going at this, and that's why I have the steps for creating a corpora, and this is where I would like to show a little demonstration. So step one was obviously finding the data, gaining competence over reading. Step two was, once that was done, step two was high resolution scan. So high resolution scans are required when you have hard copies. Sometimes you also find digital sources. For in that case, you don't need the step two. So I had hard copies, so I had to go to a commercial facility. It can't be done on our household domestic scanners or weather phone scanners, because they need a minimum resolution of 400 to 600 dpi. So I got that done at a commercial facility at Nehru Place in Delhi. Once that was done, I got access to a Marathi OCR. Now this OCR is a real game changer. OCR is optical character recognition, and the one that I used is designed by Oliver Helvig. He's doing a great job at building OCRs for Indian languages, and I would like to show it here. Is this visible? I
Yes,
am,
yes.
yeah. So this is how an OCR looks like. This is the high resolution scan that I was talking about. You select the part that you want to scan, and then you click on this button. The text recognition starts, and this is the recognized text. So what OCR does basically is that this is an image. OCR scans this and turns this image into a machine readable format. So while this can be read by humans and not by computers, this can be read by even by the computer. So this is the part where it solves the script problem of historical data. Of course, this comes with a lot of errors, so you have to do a lot of manual cleaning here. After this step, so this can be purchased. It doesn't cost much, and so once that is done, you can transfer your files into an EAST format, and EAST is the International Alphabet for Sanskrit Transliteration, and then this fifth step is the annotation for Toolbox. Toolbox is available freely. It's downloadable. You can learn it. I actually wanted to show how Toolbox works, but that is not possible. This is my data on Toolbox, and this is the dictionary that I have here. Right. So these are the relevant details about my corpus. These are the texts that I have used from the 14th century to the 16th century. My corpus is about 3,000 sentences and 18,000 words. There are 3,451 words in the dictionary. And to finish, I would just say that Niladri Shekhar Das in his 2004 paper talks about the present Indian need, where he says that India needs written corpus and monolingual, bilingual, multilingual forms, speech corpus, typed corpus, and this is my edition, that it also needs tagged historical corpus in Indian languages so that Indian languages do not lose out on their immense research potentials. These are my references. I would urge individual independent researchers to start collecting historical corpora, and if they are interested in collaborations for data or any further questions, they can always write to me at khandekar.prachi@gmail.com. Thank you so much. That was my presentation.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Anush too. So I want to ask that when you're working with OCR, you just showed the OCR with a page of a book, I guess. So if you're working with OCR on a manuscript, is it like reading the text correctly?
With a manuscript, do you mean like a handwritten manuscript, or
Yeah.
is it a published?
Well, manuscript, one that has been written by scribe. So
Yeah, so that part is still being analyzed. As much as I know, there is a lot of work happening on handwriting recognition, but it's not yet in place, not that I'm aware of. So yeah, currently there's only space for printed word. What you could do though is that if there are smaller corpora, like maybe just a page of handwritten document, you could type it out yourself in Toolbox, and that is how it could work. But if that is not possible, then maybe we have to wait for some more time to have handwriting scanners available. But I'm sure we'll get there.
and another question I have, this Mahanagari data that you just collected, is it like a religious corpus or is it like it's not a versatile corpus, right?
I wouldn't say that it is religious. It belongs to a religious group. There are different genres even within the Mahanagari data. I have worked with memoirs. So these are stories talking about their experiences with their guru or master. It's not necessarily religious. So there are sentences like, so he went to the river and he was drinking water there. So there's nothing religious about that. They are telling stories. Of course, they have a different religious philosophy branch also. I did not deal with that because it was very difficult to understand also. I hope that answers your question. Yeah.